Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available. SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have 2. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
WESN.
This is 10 questions as usual. Good morning. Welcome to the program. I'm Andy Johnson. Good to see you. I tell you, we're talking about this morning. We will be talking in the second part of the program with Denise Pitcher, who's no stranger to viewers of this station, this channel. We're talking about a report just put out by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights on human rights developments in the region, particularly as it comes to migrants from other countries gathering in a country for one reason or the other. It was a report put out in the United States, but that is a situation that is taking place in Trinidad and Tobago, and she said that is human looking at it, and she's applauded it. We will talk with her in the second part of the program. But right now, Gilbert Agard, a friend of mine for more than 60 years. We happen to have met each other. We went to the same high school, Palo Seco Secondary, and celebrated 60 years in existence a couple of weeks ago. He may have gone to the ceremony, but last week he had a program put on by an issue that I want to get to the center of it with him. He seems to have a passion for helping young people, and this particular program had to do with developing skills in heavy equipment and machinery, and he brought an expert in that from Suriname. We will talk about that in this section of the program. Good to have you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks again, Andy, for inviting me on this morning and to partake in this very important, I should say, is a discussion. I think that is more or less long in awaiting.
Yeah, before we get there, I want to ask you to talk a little bit about your passion for, it seems, your passion for helping and assisting young people in Trinidad and Tobago. And can I say possibly more prominently male youngsters in the country? Where did that come from?
That passion came about based on some experiences that I had, former experiences I had when I left secondary school and had now come into the workforce per se. And there was I had some, regrettable experiences. And I can more or less give you an insight of one.
Yeah, right.
One was where when my first employer, Texaco trainer at Point-A-Pierre as an estate police, I still had that urge to continue studies and so on. So depending on how the shift ran, with my night shift, I would carry my textbooks and so on to continue studying when activity is very quiet.
Yeah.
And this day, that night in person, one of the senior officers came up to the post and met me studying at the post. And this must have been about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And he confiscated my books and so on. And I was brought to the senior superintendent for field police and so on. And I was charged for studying on the post.
And because you weren't out there somewhere just trying to see if somebody was doing something wrong and so on.
There was nothing.
There was nothing happening.
I was in the refinery, and that part of the refinery, nothing is going on. Just the plants making continuous noise and so on.
Yeah.
So it was relatively quiet. So that having happened, that experience more or less drove me to the point that I left the job. And after leaving that job, the amount of difficulty that I found, I encountered in getting another job. Because, I will tell persons that it is not a wise idea to leave a job without having another one, in place and so on. So I had some dilemma with that. But however, when I did get that second job was with Trinidad Tesoro. And there's where it all started in terms of the activity, continuing the activities, study activities. So I never did give up that urge for continuing studies and so on.
So it was from one oil company to the other?
One company to the other. So I've never really given up that. There was an urge then. Then I always pushed myself and said that, there is something that, there's more that I think that I can find within myself, so that later down in life I might be able to add some value, pass on knowledge and so on to younger folks and so, in terms of developing them.
Yeah, I just want to make the point that I'm also a petroleum industry kind of guy, because my village is Rospaho, and when I was born, the company was TPD, Trinidad Petroleum Development Company, and then it became BP, and then it transitions now. It was Tesoro up to when it was closed down more or less. So we have those things in common. You used to say you are a BP fighter bad man, and I'm a BP.
As a matter of fact, I was born in I grew up in Forest Reserve.
Okay.
So I knew nothing but oil business. Since has been more my life. As a matter of fact, it's some 45 years that I spent in the industry, all told, as an oil well servicing technician. Working on the rigs and some of the platforms and so.
Yeah, so let's go back to where this drive started from, and you continue. You don't sleep too much when it comes to finding ways in which you feel you can help the development of young people in the country. We'll get to this program in a bit. Heavy, what we call a heavy machinery operation and so on. Before we get to that,
that drive started. It was more or less. It came to a greater fruition when I ran in the politics in 2007. And during the
you when you ran in the politics?
Yeah. In 2007, I was one of the candidates for the Labrie constituency.
For which party?
The party was the Congress of the People.
Okay, COP.
Yeah, so that was the first baptism, yes. That was my first baptism, because I always found that something has to, there's something has to be done as regards to the communities. Especially like in this case, Labrie, Labrie was dear to my heart because I grew up in Labrie. And I always thought that they might be able to make a contribution to Labrie in terms of progressively and so on. And that's where
what do you think was in need of attention even then. And we could come to talk about what the situation is today, what your views are about what might be happening, the people who are now the representing the people in that part of the country, in our part of the country, I would say.
Personal development. Yes, I think that that was most needed. You know, from where I sat, that personal development part, not enough was being paid in terms of what raising people from, you know, the standard in which that, you know, I saw that they were living standards, that is.
Yeah, too many people were without, should I say, avenues to their own personal development, and you saw that as an entry point to do some things.
It went, I think it, one would say that with the predecessor companies, they were doing quite a lot. And you had some other national companies like, for example, Lake Asphalt and Van Leer and
Lake Asphalt is the
Asphalt, yeah, and Van Leer and so on. And they were doing a part as corporate, as far as from where I sat and was looking in terms of really maintaining library as a hub activity in the South, to the extent that I think that they paid great responsibility and great attention to the condition of the roads. I knew that Van Leer and Lake Asphalt and Brighton, as a matter of fact, that was there. They collectively contributed towards the upkeep of the roads, like in Library particularly. Because you had villages down in Library, New Jersey, you had, and these were middle income people lived in those areas.
Yeah, the New Jersey.
But when they left, Jersey, right? But when they left, that's when, to me, everything went asunder.
Yeah. We can get to Mr. Tal Joram in a minute. It's the man from Suriname who was here a couple of weeks ago and did some stuff that we would talk about. But this is not the sort of the first project that you're working on in respect to, I would say, getting young people off the street and into something that will enhance their opportunities for progress and so on.
The first project was one that was started together with, we started a project with Professor Clyde Phillip, developing some thoughts around what we had called Retirees Global Knowledge Network. Because what we found is that out there, in the field, particularly in the energy sector, there exists a wide scope of resource personals, you know, whether it is oil and gas, whether it is clerical, whether it is engineers and so on, that can be utilized if we had a sort of the persons that were directly responsible for taking these initiatives forward, if they had an interest in really wanting to put those resources I mentioned to use. They could have come up with some policy, some kind of plan to direct this resource that they can add value to, you know.
But it didn't happen
It didn't happen. So what I did is that I sort of transferred that idea now, because I realized that it wasn't really taking the route that I thought it would have. And I sort of changed the direction and formed what I call a sole trader company by the name of Culture Sales Enterprises.
Culture
Sales Enterprises. Yeah. Because I did that with this specific reason, idea that the point that was coming to my mind is that I was attempting to show that it is by our various cultures that business moves from place to place. That's why I said it was Culture Sales, in SAILS, Enterprises.
Right.
So whether it's the culture of music, song, food, those various things of which we are very rich proponents of, that business moves from region to region, place to place. So I tried it out myself, because sometime in around 2015, I had a person out from the Dutch Islands in St. Eustatius. I told me that where we hear the Trinidad is versatile in masquerade and so on. Can you bring a person up here to help with the mass development in Statia? And I had a gentleman from Point Fortin. I took him up there, and we stayed
so you did it?
Yeah, I did that. As a matter of fact, and by extension, so that was as far as the goods and services were concerned, because that was part of the enterprise. Yes. So I had persons come forward from St. Eustatius, same place. They were looking for medical doctors, and I was able to source medical doctors here and send over to them. So, you know, I have always been, you know, more or less involved in doing that transfer in terms of moving people around, moving goods around, you know, sharing and giving support and so on wherever I possibly could. That has been me.
Yeah. And to date, what would you, if you sum it up to see, you know, you draw a column as to one is a success and one is not, dealing with, you know, the outcomes of these things, what might be your position? Is it rewarding, not necessarily
I love
money-wise?
I love it, but you see, I'll tell you the part about it is that it gives me an opportunity for a second hobby that I have, which is travel. I always say that I hear people making complaints sometimes, you know, very, very frequently they make those complaints that, boy, there's no work here in Trinidad, there's nothing to do in Trinidad. But you cannot stay in one place and expect, you know, like I would say, you can't be in a position like a parrot in the nest with your mouth open like that and hoping that someone will just put food in. You got to fly out. You got to move around. You got to, you know, find new boundaries. Like when I was in Suriname last, I met a guy who is a gentleman who is the president of the Energy Chamber in Suriname, Mr. Onbu. Mm-hmm. And he told me, he said, listen, he made a mention to me that has stuck in my mind. You have to find your blue sea.
Find your what? Your
blue sea, as the same gentleman tell you. You got to go out and, you know, find your blue sea, man, and develop it from that perspective. You can't sit and expect that, you know, things are going to fall from heaven like manna from heaven and so on. You got to go out there. You have to persevere. You have to, you know, be, how you have a dream, you go after it. You know, pursue it. And that's what I've been doing since I've retired, as a matter of fact. Somewhat 14 years now. I love travel. As a matter of fact, I have invitations right now for Guyana. I have invitations for St. Martin, because under the same exercise that I'm going to speak to you about, yeah, we have an interest person in St. Martin and St. Eustatius who wants this program to be brought to them, because there is a group of persons there who, by means of their work, practice and so on, need to be enlightened and so on. So we'll be looking at that in the long term as we press forward with the Chi of Suriname and Culture Sales Enterprise of Trinidad.
That's your company, what you call it. Yeah. We get there in a bit, but I wanted to ask you anyway that you had been a good friend and associate of the late, who had been the Member of Parliament in Faizabad, Sanderson, Sanderson, and so on.
Yeah. He was more than a mentor. He was a good friend, very, very close friend, you know, and sometimes, you know, he comes to mind at that. I remember I never forget the last statement he made to me, you know. As a matter of fact, when he was more or less like on his last days, and I went to look for him, and I used to drive him around Faizabad because, you know, he couldn't move. I used to take him around, he'd tell me, well, take him there, you want to see, you know. And I made an attempt to lift him. And boy, like I felt something on my back, and up to now I still suffer from that. So he has left a print with me, yeah, you know. Afterwards, you know, a good, very, very, very good, you know, devoted friend.
Yeah, I remember the day that you came to see me, you know.
His parting words to me was, Gilbert, do good.
Yeah, they say that if you do good, good will always follow you.
Do good. That's a Spartan words. Those stay with me. Yeah.
Yeah. And at that point, he wanted to, he was talking about getting back into the politics.
Yeah, he wanted to go back. As a matter of fact, he felt he would have been in service to be able to do something for the constituents, particularly in Faizabad. And he had asked he wanted to join with the PNM in doing that. But he was unsuccessful in being, selected and so on.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be brought into
those are the last hurrahs in the politics. He made that attempt, yeah.
And you have this fascination, or I would say maybe it's a commitment, maybe it's in a continuing sort of urge and necessity to get to understand the business about machinery and equipment. Before we get to this one, talk a little bit about what's the excitement, what's the attraction, the attractiveness of
the attraction is, guys, as I said, it was always because of that urge to continue learning. You see, and even though I was on the rig well floor, per se.
On the what?
On the well floor. That's the production operations. Mm-hmm. We have the rig and so on.
Yeah.
And even though I was on the well floor.
Yeah, which was sort of like
at the lowest level. Yeah. I continued, schooling myself and so on, attending technical school in San Fernando, of which, I had great mentors that I can call that, that more or less assisted me quite a lot. I can speak into persons like Mr. Justin Paul. I can speak into persons like Mr. Churchill Harris. They were great mentors to me. And quite a few. Vincent. You remember Vincent that lived in, I think it was Dali Village?
Well, that's his first name or his last name? Dennis Vincent.
Dennis Vincent. Those guys are the guys more or less that pushed me. Those are my mentors. When they talk and so on, I meet them, they talk and they will more or less give me encouragement and so on. Yeah. Because quite a lot of times I was tempted. I remember
his nickname because he was sort of a...
I was tempted to leave the job because the job was sort of frustrating because I found that, sometimes you find yourself working in a group that does not really satisfy or move in the direction where you really would like to move. I guess probably because of the levels that the guys were at. They more or less were simple guys. And I come into an area where, I am more or less, I look into more or less achieve a little higher. So I always had some difficulties and so on there. That was...
Yeah, he was one of the persons I looked up to as well when I was coming up and so on. Even when I, thought I'd become a man and I started to work in tongue and so on. But, when I went back...
Remember he taught us technical drawing?
Yeah, right. And he was, when the company at the time, the Santa Flora office side of it, when they decided to go computerized, he and another fellow who was the brother of Ramchand Dipchan, who was part of our batch in school. Yeah. They were the first two people who the company sent away to study this business about computers. That time a computer would take up this whole room here, machinery and so on. Yeah, and he was one of them who sort of was at the front end of that. So moving from technical drawing to that was
and then you had Calvin Blaze, one of the greatest motivators that I would have come across in the company. Calvin Blaze, So these guys, what I'm saying that those persons all assisted me, I would think. They blessed me up in terms of, being to achieve something much more than what where I started and so on. And I could never forever be grateful for them.
Yeah. And so what you're saying, that it reveals then that, so it's something that it came with you, you got opportunities to learn, and you continue to do that, but then you developed I would say an obligation to pass it on, which is what you do now.
It's a passion. I developed a passion more or less that, say that just like myself, and having gone through the trenches and so on, and see, I said, well, listen, there must be something that I can do to assist, moving forward. And that's where we are.
All right, so let's talk about Mr. Tojeram, if that is how you pronounce his name, Raymond Tojeram, Suriname. Let's talk a little bit about him and how you managed to meet him, and talk about him coming to Trinidad too.
I met Raymond in a strange way through another friend that was working at a retiree from Statsoli company, and she went through a discussion. She said, "Listen, I have someone that I would like you to meet, and she referred me to Raymond. And Raymond and I had some, tete-a-tete over some tea at his place, his office. And then he, well, of course, he has a business more or less that supplies, safety supplies and so on. So in the discussion, he told me, listen, man, I kept hammering him to invite him to Trinidad and so on because, during the discussion, what we spoke about and so on. And I forever keep inviting persons, I always invite persons, come to Trinidad, come and, And in January of this year, so that was in September, when I was there last year, and January of this year, he called and said, listen, he's returning from a seminar in Curacao, but he will want to come to Trinidad. I said, fine, you're welcome. When would you like to come? And he told me around March would be fine. And so I said, well, if he wants to come, what is the purpose? What was his drive? What is his drive when he wanted to come to Trinidad? Then he told me, no, fine, I'm paying my passage and everything. So he paid his passage from Suriname. The good gentleman paid his hotel accommodation. And he decided, listen, we have to get together because we seem to have the same kind of thinking. We are together and so on. So he came down to Trinidad and decided that he will spend some 5 days, of which we will start to develop this initiative that we came to call the Trinsuri Initiative.
Okay, Trinsuri,
okay. Yeah, Suri. And it was more or less geared towards workforce development because that has been the main theme, developing the workforce because we were concentrating, looking at the new companies that were showing some interest in Trinidad. And then we were driven by that, the thoughts surrounding the restart of the refinery. And then we were looking at...
That's the refinery in Point-de-Pierre.
Point-de-Pierre. And then we were looking at, because I took him around too, and we saw some conditions of some equipment. This condition is status those machinery were. And he said that it meant that something had to be wrong as regards to the operatorship. Because a person is not going to put out this large amount of money, buy these equipment, and have them parked up there like,
Yeah.
So he said there has to be a problem, and he thinks that that problem has to do with a lack of training in terms of the operators, the guys who operate those equipment. Something seems to be amiss.
So they can operate them, but they can't fix them.
They could drive them,
yeah,
but they can't operate them properly.
I see. Yeah.
That's his problem. See, a driver, you could drive a backhoe.
But if something happens to it.
Yeah, but in terms of operating, when you spin and start to operate the equipment, the mechanics, that has to be, is a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, so this program is about learning how to
properly operate them. How to properly operate and maintain them. That's what basically, that's the drive. So because we were looking at it from the standpoint that with the opportunities, especially with the young men that are coming out, everyone may not be able to be employed in one industry or in one place. Because now that we have a broader curriculum, it means then that once you're equipped, chances are you can go Ghana and get a job. You can go Greendot and get a job because you're tooled, properly tooled. So that has been the thinking behind
right,
it.
so that undergirds your mission.
Yeah.
And part of what is your mission statement. So with him coming he agreed to come.
So he agreed to come, and we formalized how we were going to do plans and so on. And we started the work. I went out in the field. I hit the field running, doing lots of site visits, talking to contractors, talking to individuals, talking to operators. Any interest person that I come across, I did some invitations. I gave it to them. I explained to them what we were attempting and so on. And they showed an interest. And I said, on the 21st, we intend to have this exercise at OWTU. But before that, the union was very, very helpful. I shouldn't say helpful. They were very interested in this type of exercise. Comrade Ozzy Warwick, said that he had liked it. So I guess more or less he had his persons involved in it to the extent that we had the Assistant General Secretary, Comrade Basis. He played a key role in terms of the event happening of the event, and that was quite rewarding. And then we had the keen support of Mr. Sadiq Bash, who is Bmobile, is an action person. Yeah. So we knew that because we knew that we were in once we had a point in terms of where the interest was and the support was, we knew that this has to happen. And we went to the ends to make sure that it did happen on the 21st.
Right, so what transpired on that day then? So
well, during that, what transpired is that the presentations, we had various presenters. We had a presenter from the NESC. We had a presenter from the NESC, National Energy Skills Center, because that's where the young men coming out. They have, I think that they have a training center for heavy equipment out in Woodford Lodge. So we had a person representing the insurance. Very important, because then normally when we told that
insurance.
Something that doesn't come into play. People just work and they don't feel like, that the insuring yourself in the event of injury or deaths and so on and so on.
Okay.
So we thought that, hey, let's bring someone to educate people of the interests of those things. And then we had input from a person from the HSE person perspective. And we had HSE, that's Health, Safety and Environment.
Okay, yeah.
Then we
Health, Safety and Environment, yes.
Then we had
acronyms.
We had one from the Mr. Sadiq Bash was there, and then I think Raymond did. I don't think I left out anyone, but we had a group of some 4 presenters, including Raymond, who was the featured speaker, and he did a projector presentation.
So how did you meet him, you say? How did you ran into him somehow?
How?
How did you meet him, Mr. Tojaram?
I met him in Suriname.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, just...
Yeah, while I was there. Yeah. While I was there, it's only in Suriname that I met him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you all just ran into each other? Or?
We just hit off and started, hit off and started talk and discuss and talk and so on. And he's telling me about his experiences. He's telling me what he wants to do, and see, I'm telling him,
And you saw an avenue by which...
Yeah, that we could think. So that's why we had that collaboration. We collaborate, thoughts and the ideas. And so right now we on a drive to, because he said, listen, I think that we need to go to a level of registration in Trinidad. Have the initiative registered in Trinidad. So, but sometimes he sent me last week. He sent me not last week, it was the day before. He sent me a correspondence dated from 2010, because he used to be in Trinidad before doing works and so on, like with BP, British Gas, and with Massey and so on, and doing training with them and so on.
So he was no stranger to the place.
No, he was no stranger. Okay. But you see that. Somewhere along the line, there was a sort of a calm, and then we have the issue now stirring up with the store, of which he was part of the persons involved
STW, you see
in,
what
in the store and so on. The what's safe to work?
Yeah.
You see,
Okay.
he was involved in that. But then I understand that there's a move ahead to eliminate it. You know, I haven't really gone into that part of it. But I think that we were looking at systems that more or less could tie in everything, because if it is STO, it is OSHA, if it is accreditation, if it's registration, we are saying that all of these elements need to be brought together if we're talking about developing the workforce to the point that, you know, it could be acceptable. It's like a complete marriage.
Yeah. Well, there's one, I think, health, safety, and security.
Yeah. You see, because I said that I was able, in my investigations, I was told, inadvertently, that, for example, the accident that happened offshore operation there, one of the guys who actually worked on that platform, I don't think he was on shift at that point. That very platform, that very rig platform. Yeah. He told me that rig was ruled to be out of service.
A long time now.
Yeah, it had served some 44 years. So as a matter of fact, it's supposed to have gone to the scrap dealers.
Yeah, well, you're saying some things here that, in my head, these are matters still to be dealt with as to probably why that rig was still operating and whose responsibility that was and what.
You see, there's something called that I have really found to in a discussion with a gentleman in St. Martin, and he brought it home to me that whenever you have where there's a lack of awareness on the law, if persons are not brought into that sphere of thinking, of the importance of that, of awareness, you know, you like lost sheep. So it's important to know really if you are, whatever that you're doing, what are the, you know, where you are in terms of environmentally and so on. You must know.
Yeah. And that is what helps to drive your commitment to this.
I sent you something that I'm showing there, like for example, where we came from. I will always use the oil field as an example. Because I remember when we worked in the oil field, I think I sent you a picture. The guys are working on the well floor, no safety shoes. Yeah. They were, you know, open back and so on.
But you're not allowed to do those things anymore now.
No,
you can't.
No. So we have gone from one phase. So I'm saying that it's only the workforce can only do better when it is developed to the point where, you know, these ill practices are, you know, addressed and so on.
Yeah. So from the gathering to Saturdays ago to where, in terms of how you move this forward?
Well, we're moving forward, in terms, as I said, we're moving forward to this thing that we'll be looking at registration. We want to talk with we have to start a discussion again with the NTA.
That's the National Training Agency.
Training Agency, because if it is that we're looking for want of a better descriptive word, accreditation of an institute of Trinidad, we will have to go that way through them and so on.
Accreditation.
Accreditation. And then we intend to have a forum where those who have go back to the contractors or interested persons, this time with the intention that they will identify a specific interest. So before it was an open invitation. So meaning, in other words, if you have a request or a need for 3 or 4 or 5 of your special men, then we know then that there is some business arrangements that can be worked out with the institute so that Mr. Tojiram can now come directly and make a presentation in practical and theoretical form.
So it's a measure of success then that there's going to be a follow-up from this.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm only saying that we have to wrap it up because I made a we have somebody we think to talk about another matter and so on. But we have to come back and we continue this.
When we come back, anytime we do come back, so I'll be more or less in a position to report further progressively what is taking place with the Trinity Experience Initiative 26.
Very good to see you, my friend, and we'll stay together.
Thanks again for having me.
This is
Thank you.
Following positive working in Trinidad and Tobago, creating opportunities for people emerging as adults in the country. Gilbert Agard, a friend from high school, that's a long time ago. We celebrated 60 years. Well, I couldn't go to the event for a number of reasons, but 60 years ago, that's when we met, and we continue to be friends. We take a break, and when we come back, there's Denise Pitcher, a social worker, if you like, looking at the latest report of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, the registering of people in the United States, and the question is to what extent that will happen in Trinidad and Tobago, migrants who've come from Venezuela in particular. So stay with us, we're coming back.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
back to the program. We're talking now with no stranger to the cameras on this network, on this station, no stranger to issues having to do with human development. Denise Pitcher, whose remarks on a report done by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights with migrants in, well, it's 4 migrants in this region. She applauded it, and I thought that it was necessary to, it was useful to have a chat with her about it and where it puts us here in Trinidad and Tobago, trying to regularize some of the people living in the country from, let's say from Venezuela in this case, with other things happening. She's agreed to talk with us. Good to have you, Denise.
Good morning, Andy. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and so you made these comments about what is said in the Inter-American Commission for Human Rights matters having to do with, is it the United States regularizing migrants, particularly from Venezuela, and putting them in a situation in which they can go about the place with the rights and accesses like other people. And it's my suggestion, my feeling then was that there is a sense that from you that should happen with greater sort of pace in Trinidad and Tobago, correct?
So yes, so the report that they issued, it's on organized crime and human rights in Latin America and the Caribbean. And yes, one of the areas of focus was on immigrants and migrants in the region. But the report mainly is about integrating a human rights approach to all, when you're addressing organized crime and of course the intersection with immigration, with migrants. So for example, with right to due process, access to justice, basically along those lines, right to a fair trial within a reasonable time. Those are the guidelines that were issued under this report. And of course, as we know in Trinidad and Tobago right now, the government is undertaking the migrant registration process. I just want to underscore that while we do focus a lot on Venezuelan migrants in Trinidad and Tobago, there are over 40 different nationalities that seek asylum and also come to Trinidad and Tobago seeking a better life, and that they also form part of the whole migration movement to Trinidad and Tobago.
All right. And so is it, so do we have in Trinidad and Tobago an obligation to follow the work that the ICHR has done? Is that how it goes or how it should go?
So this resolution that was issued by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, it's guidelines, but of course it's guidelines along the lines of our obligations as a party, as a member state of the OAS, and also with regards to the principles that we've committed to under the American Declaration on Human Rights and the charter as well too. So, but those human rights obligations also exist in our constitution, within our laws. So these are not new obligations. It's just, I guess, a reminder or to reinforce that we should be integrating a human rights approach, to all areas with regards to organized crime. Of course, as we know, with the migration flows as well too, there are, trafficking networks and, drug smuggling networks. And it's important to, to make these distinctions and also to, when in the migration movements, to assess, allow due process so that people are not criminalized or there's a blanket approach towards crime or an assumption of crime because they've entered irregularly in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, and where does it sit in relation to the fact that you have Venezuelan people in Trinidad and Tobago wanting to get I'm not sure if safe haven is a correct term for it, but sort of a greater sense of acceptance by the society, by the rules that govern us, and there's a discussion about that.
So migrants, asylum seekers and migrants and refugees Their main goal in, seeking a safer space or, migrating to different country is because they want opportunity or they want safety and security. And, the vast majority of migrants and refugees just want that opportunity for safety and security, and also the opportunity to become productive members of society. So, so it's good that this government now, the current government is undertaking measures to register migrants and refugees. However, it's unclear in terms of, what the refugee status determination process is for persons who are in legitimate need of asylum, because, of course, there are legal distinctions between migrants and refugees. Migrants can return to their country of origin, but refugees cannot because of fear of persecution due to war and conflict or threats to their safety and security, for political persecution, political opinion, and maybe membership of a certain group, for example, LGBTQI community. So, so it's important that while this registration process is going on, that there also needs to be, legislation to protect asylum seekers and refugees, because their protection needs are different.
Yeah. So this is a call from your organization to sort of take pattern, or there's been some reporting in which Venezuelan people in Trinidad who are coming forward. There was a time when, to some extent, people were skeptical or scared even to come to be recognized, thereby being looked after. So those sentiments are changing or have changed in your experience?
Can you just because I'm not sure what you're asking in terms of
in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes. Yes.
That the Venezuelan nationals are coming forward in a way in which maybe 6 months ago that wasn't the case. And for instance, there was a report in I think in the Catholic News about work going on at the facility called La Casita, is it?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously the migrants and refugees who are here, they want to be integrated. They want the opportunities to access education. They want to be able to legally stay here and work. And of course, that's important for us as well too, in terms of integrating migrants and refugees into our society, and also that they can participate in the economy, continue to contribute to the economy, because they have been already contributing to many industries in Trinidad and Tobago: the hospitality industry, the agriculture industry, construction industry. So the registration process, and as well as providing some sort of legal framework where they are allowed to participate more fully into the economy and society of Trinidad and Tobago, is beneficial to the migrants and also Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah. And is it something that like advocates like yourself have to keep looking at to see the movement from statements of intent, to choose a term, as opposed to actuality in the system accepting what has been discovered, what has been agreed to?
Well, I mean, we are a party to the Refugee Convention. We are a party to a number of different international conventions and treaties, where we've committed to protecting asylum seekers and refugees, and migrants as well too. So there is a recognition by the state that we are obligated to protect these persons in need. Of course, that can only be fully realized if there is a legal framework. And right now, without a legal framework, people are still left in limbo. They're still unclear about their rights. They are still, they're still vulnerable. They're still, for example, fearful of deportation. There's also, and even some of the state authorities are still not, fully, aware of the fact that while someone has entered irregularly, that is a right, or that's it's a right under the Refugee Convention, that, for example, if you were forced to flee, you will not be penalized for irregular entry, and therefore, when you're found to be, to have breached the borders and entered irregularly, that must be a case-by-case assessment, because for various reasons, people have no other choice but to enter irregularly. And so they should not be penalized, they should not be at risk of deportation. And so this is why it's so important for a legal framework.
Yeah, so I mean, what is your sense, in terms of statements of intent as opposed to acceptance of obligation based on these statements?
So, I mean, we've committed. It's not even just statements of intent, because these are commitments. Once we've signed on to these treaties, we've made commitments. Of course, the commitment is to integrate these, the principles, the guidelines of these international treaties into our local legislation, but we've committed to that. And I mean, apart from, statements of intents or commitments, the right to seek asylum is also the customary international law, because it's recognized around the world that if someone has entered a country irregularly or have declared an intent to seek asylum, that is the state's obligation to provide that person the opportunity to go through the process, to have their claim assessed, to seek asylum, and be allowed the due process. And so it's a widespread practice, which is customary international law, because it's so universally accepted. The right to seek asylum, whether or not we have a legal framework, we are still obligated under international law.
How much time, if I could ask you this, how much time you are giving the system to come to a position where you could say, well, yes, your people are meeting their stated obligations by these or that aspect? You refer to what is required sort of from a legal point of view. The momentum, go ahead.
So, I mean, I think we are honoring our commitments. For example, some children are being allowed to access, public schools. So that's one measure. Access to education, they access healthcare. They're allowed to go to our public medical facilities and access healthcare. The government registration is also a step integrating them so that they can work legally, stay here legally. So we are honoring our commitments, but of course, no measures, I mean, of course, there's always room for improvement. And I think for example, in terms of the deportation, just making sure that there is that legal framework so people are not at risk of deportation, because persons who may have fled Venezuela or other countries where they were at risk or they face security issues back in their home country, if there's no legal framework to prevent those deportations, we run the risk of sending persons who are in need of protection back to a country of origin where their safety and security could be threatened.
And there's a lot of work still to be done there to provide a safer haven for the people.
You mean in Venezuela or in Trinidad? Yes, of course. As I said, once we have it, the government, they have said that they are working on, some sort of refugee law or migration law. So of course, we just have to kind of wait and see what that would look like. But I mean, they are taking steps. They recognize that, migrants and refugees do contribute to our economy, do contribute to society. And this registration process, of course, is one good measure towards that in terms of offering them some legal protections. But with regards to refugees, asylum seekers and refugees, particularly, their needs their legal requirements or their legal protections are a little more different compared to migrants. So that the main goal or the main objective of any refugee legislation is to prevent, deportation or sending someone back to their home country where they could face security issues.
You probably would have been asked to explain this 1,000 times. What's the substantive difference between a refugee and a migrant?
Right. So as I said, at its core, a migrant can return home because they have left in search of a better life, economic opportunity, in search of a better job. That's a migrant. However, a refugee cannot return, an asylum seeking refugee cannot return to their home country because if they were to return, their life could be at risk. And so that's the main distinction. They are fleeing persecution. Migrants are moving for better opportunity, job opportunities, for a better life.
Yeah. And without getting into any further details and so on, what is your sense telling you about to the extent to which we, when I say we, I mean the system and the people who are in charge of or in the positions to make the system work? What is your sense that there's a, I'm not sure if this is a deeper sense of conviction by the people who do these jobs to get them done?
Well, I mean, we can look at the state's actions, we can look at the state's statements, and they seem to be endeavoring to honor some of the commitments that we have, signed on to. With the registration, as I said, there seems to be a recognition that, we should integrate these persons. They're already here and they're contributing, most of them are contributing productively to Trinidad and Tobago society. So those are some initial measures. Of course, they've said that they will be working on some sort of migration law or refugee law. So I guess we just have to wait and see what that looks like. And of course, if there continues to be gaps in the legislation, we, advocates, civil society can continue to advocate and lobby the government, to strengthen those legal frameworks.
All right. Well, thank you very much for talking with us in this Denise picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, that will do it for us for this edition of the program. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
WESN.
Breaking into the senior setup at a young age is great, but I just always remember to stay grounded, keep the right people around me, and just remember there's always more to achieve as a team. My strengths as a wing-back is definitely my ability to get up and down the pitch on both flanks and really impact attack and defence. It gave me a lot of confidence playing